Now to turn our attentions to the international newspaper, and Laurent Berchtaker has been scouring them for us. Laurent, I'm going to start with one of the main stories really of the day. It's that deadly earthquake and tsunami that has drowned much of Indonesia. How are the Indonesian papers reacting?
Well, we already know that there are over 800 confirmed deaths so far, and according to the Jakarta Post, that death toll could rise to thousands. Because researchers haven't yet been able to reach very remote areas that have been affected. For example, the Donggala region, which is closest to the earthquake epicenter, is home to 300,000 people and so far remains unreachable.
Indeed, and authorities now saying they need more heavy equipment to be brought in, when they do get to those areas to help try and find survivors. But a lot also being written, Laurent, about the country's warning system and that it potentially didn't work as it should have.
Well, that's right. There was actually a new high-tech system that was put in place in 2004 after the last major earthquake and tsunami hit the country. But unfortunately, delays in getting the necessary funding, they were just missing $70,000, meant that the project was never fully completed. And over the weekend, when the earthquake hit, it went off, according to the Financial Times, a little too late and was then called off prematurely, which is an incident which may have cost hundreds of lives.
Oh, God, there would no doubt be a backlash over that. But there's also a story coming out of Indonesia of incredible courage, one air traffic controller's giving his life to save others.
Well, yeah, it really resonated with the people there. Antonius Gunawan Agung was his name, and he was supposed to evacuate the airport along with other air controllers. But the 21-year-old decided to stay on the job while his colleagues were fleeing in order to safely guide a plane with hundreds of passengers to take off. He then unfortunately lost his life as a result, but I'm sure he will be remembered by millions for his bravery.
Yeah, incredible act of selflessness. Let's turn on to other news, though, now, Laurent. And the French President, Emmanuel Macron, has been visiting islands that were hit last year by Hurricane Irma, a scene that's attracted a lot of media attention here in France.
Yes, and well, according to the Huffington Post, Emmanuel Macron is back doing what he loves, meeting the crowds, talking to locals and visiting, in this case, disaster-hit areas. The president spent over 4 hours in one of St. Martin's most disenfranchised villages, where he was only supposed to stay 90 minutes, so he roughed the schedule up a little bit, and several of his ministers who were following him even decided to give up on that.
So, moving away from the schedule, and also another part of his trip really getting a lot of attention, not just that extended hours of visits.
Well, it was actually in St. Martin's where Macron met with a young man who was just out of prison. We can see it in a French daily Libération, the picture of him and the young man. And Macron gave him some advice on how to turn his life around, basically give up on crime, find a job, and with nice muscles like he has, help to rebuild the island. The article argues this is part of Macron's push to seem more down to earth and to redeem himself with the French people after a difficult summer where he was often called president of the rich. But however, this new dialogue may seem condescending to some observers.
Yeah, indeed. It'll no doubt gain some backlash. Let's move over now to the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Theresa May is really stuck between a rock and a hard place on the Brexit question as she heads into, her Tory party's annual conference.
That's right. On the one hand, she has the European Union, which rejected her latest proposal, and on the other, Conservatives within her own party are pushing her to be harder on Brexit. According to The Guardian, she will now have to assert her authority at the Tories meeting, a conference which will be held later today. Well, according to this cartoonist, Theresa May would probably be rather be anywhere else than at this conference.
Indeed. Well, one of her most vocal critics is coming from former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, and he's called May's Brexit plan deranged and preposterous.
Well, yes, but there's a sense that Johnson may be trying to sabotage Theresa May, and that he will do so again at this conference today. We see here the cartoon by The Independent showing a giddy Boris Johnson sitting inside a bucket above the door where Theresa May is about to enter, a clear act of sabotage. However, his previous remarks on her Brexit plan may have backfired already. Several Conservative MPs have distanced themselves from Johnson, even though they don't necessarily agree with Theresa May. But they said, his remarks were out of line, and he's not really reaping the benefits of that. In another cartoon that was published by the Sunday Times, we can see Johnson deliberately sabotaging once again Theresa May in a golf game, shoving the ball outside with his foot, while the Prime Minister is asking whether it's us or US versus Europe.
Okay, well, that brings us neatly on, Laurent, to our last story, and the Ryder Cup, an international golf tournament in which Europe did beat the United States.
Well, yes, it was an upset because the United States were clear favorites to win this tournament. And for French magazine L'Équipe, it's a sign that that there's strength in unity for the European team, an all-star European team that ended up crushing the US with favorites such as Tiger Woods losing all of his games. And the final score, 17.5 to 10.5, might stay long in history, especially for the captain of the Europe team, the Danish Thomas Bjørn, who said he would stand by his earlier promise to get a tattoo of the final score on his backside. He said after the win, this was probably the worst decision he made all week, but confirmed that he would stand by the move.
Okay, you wonder, was he just not confident himself in his own team going into that tournament? Laurent Versteker, thanks a lot for bringing us the interesting articles there out of the international papers.